welcome. Dune Part 2. I'm special guest, Stephen Andreation of
Hello.
the Stephen Andreation channel that we've been doing the commentaries for Star Wars, and he also is a big Doctor Who YouTuber. Yeah.
I wouldn't say big, but...
Yeah, well known in the space.
Infamous.
But I've now seen Dune Part 2 3 times in 4 days. I went Thursday night because I saw when I was getting into Ottawa that they had an IMAX theater. Then I went Friday night because I had already booked the tickets like 2 weeks ago, so I had to go.
Yep.
I saw that in Ultra AVX, and then I came home Sunday, saw it with Steve in normal Cineplex theater.
Yep.
Sadly, no Dune popcorn buckets. I think that's been the biggest disappointment.
Could not be found.
But right off the top of my noggin, the biggest things that I think stood out to me were the new sound design. I think the sound design was a little bit better. There's lots of good lasgun sounds were really good. The new thumper sound design, where it's super bassy and really hits you. That I think I noticed a lot. The ornithopters were about the same. The worms sounded really good. The LFE rumbles for you post-production people. Good LFE. But outside of that, what were your main takeaway there, Steve, right off the top?
Oh, it was an excellent film. I kind of preferred it more than the first Dune movie, which is strange because for the book, I prefer the first half rather than the second half. I just thought that was just a much more engaging story than I was anticipating.
Yeah, I think for sure it's a good movie. I think for me, I personally enjoyed the first Dune more. I think it's more faithful to the books.
True.
I think the thing I've been saying about Dune Part 2 is it's a great movie, but not a great adaptation of the books.
No.
I think it covers the same themes and kind of stories, but it gets there in a kind of different way. I mean, we can get into some of the things that are pretty different. I think right off the bat, the biggest change that I noticed was the difference in the Fremen's approach to Paul.
Yes.
In the book, the Fremens are pretty much they're all on board with Paul. They're like, Paul's all right.
Yeah.
In this, they're like, we don't like you.
Yeah, there's more factions to it.
Yeah, like you got I think they said fundamentalists. I don't think that's a word used once in all of Dune.
Probably not.
But I don't think that's a terrible thing. Also, Chaney is kind of a bit more, I don't know, aggressive towards Paul and his mom. Paul also, though, is a little different where he's less fanatical. I think in the books, not that he's fanatical because he's still trying to avoid the jihad in the book, but in the movie he's more open with I'm not the prophet. Where in the book he's like, I am though.
Yeah. I think the film gave it more depth to some of these characters, where they were somewhat more two-dimensional in the book.
Yeah, I think the thing I've seen of people talking about the book is more of very two-dimensional archetypes of this person is this archetype, this person is this archetype, which I think some people have talked about is why Tolkien doesn't like Dune.
Well, Dune is more about the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's less about the characters.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty good. I do think too, there's a couple different things where, the naming of Paul, where he gets Muad'Dib from, is very different. In the book, he gets it after he kills Jamis. You don't get a lot of the different things with Chaney, where you don't get Aaliyah, which changes a ton of things. You don't get Chaney and Paul having a baby, which changes not a ton, just a couple things of character dynamics. I think the dynamic of Jessica and Chaney is very different in the books, especially after Paul takes the water of life. In the books, that's more of a bonding moment for Chaney and Jessica, and in the movie, Chaney just hates Jessica for that moment. She's yelling at her. She's like, "What'd you do?" She even slaps Paul, and I was like, I don't know if I like that. It's more of a supportive moment, and Chaney is the one that heals Paul from her own understanding, not through Jessica just forcing her to, which I thought kind of takes away from that, because in the books, Jessica's I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And also the whole water of life, that's Paul's decision. His mom's not oh, you gotta drink this. Yeah. She's don't do this.
I think though that change gives Jessica more of this kind of Machiavellian kind of persona, where she's intentionally trying to alter the Fremen life, and I think that gives the character a bit more depth to her. I think it's a change that I prefer, kind of, but I do understand that it is quite different from the books.
And I think too, no Aaliyah makes sense. How are you going to do a crazy 4-year-old toddler? It doesn't work. So I think her talking to Aaliyah while she's still in the womb. I think that actually works better.
It does, and it's much more unnerving.
Or maybe not better from like a story standpoint, but a better film story standpoint. I don't think it can work, and it does. It seems like it freaks out some of the other characters around her. Like you'll see them look at her when she talks to Aaliyah. Let's see here. Let's check the notes. Oh yeah, there's a lot of characters missing. I already said Aaliyah, but there's no Thufir Hawat.
Yeah.
You don't get Count Fenring. You do get Margot Fenring. You don't get Hera or Jameis's sons. Not that Jameis's sons are really in it.
No.
But in the books, it's something that Paul notices, that they're like going around protecting him, which he's actually like, oh, I like this. But I think, yeah, there's no other real characters missing. Oh, and there's also no guild navigators. You don't see a single guild person, like nothing.
I was hoping to see at least a tiny glimpse of them.
Or there's also no, you actually don't see the navigators. You don't see the representatives. Because in the books, you don't see the navigator until the start of Messiah.
Yeah.
That's when you get the weird fish people. But that's a spoiler. I do think some of the story things, too, on top of that they changed that I really like, is Gurney getting to kill Raban. In the book, Gurney doesn't get to kill any Harkonnens. He just kills all the, like, peasant Harkonnens. But in this, Raban, I think, in the book is killed off-screen by, like, just other Fremen. But I think getting Gurney to go up there and just, boof, gets him, I think that was way better. Let's see here. I think the casting, though. The casting was fantastic.
Excellent.
I think the only thing I didn't love was Anya Taylor-Joy as Aaliyah. I feel like you're shoehorning yourself into, like, a character for that, but I think it'd be pretty easy to recast her. Javier Bardem as Stilgar is so funny.
Funniest character in the whole film.
They definitely made him a much funnier character. Let's see here. The ending is also a little different, but not different. Having just finished the book, because I finished the book Sunday afternoon before going to see it, is the book ends before the film does. The film, you get him in the ending kind of going out to start the jihad, but you don't find that out in the end of the book. You just get, like, it just ends. He kills Fade Ralthar, which is also slightly changed. You don't get the poison knife, because that's kind of a plot. And then instead of Paul getting stabbed, Paul just stabs him in the brain. Like, I think he's like, he literally stabs him, like, upside the head. But yeah, you don't get that where they're like, oh, well, the great houses don't accept your ascendancy. You don't know that in the book or not. It just kind of ends. You assume he does. Yeah. But it's not specifically said, which I've seen some people actually saying that, oh yeah, he becomes the Emperor at the end of the book. He technically doesn't. It's not said. But I feel like I'm missing so many things, but I feel like I've said a lot of what I wanted to say. I feel like a lot of my notes just aren't really relevant, or they're too much of a spoiler. Like, now that I'm looking through them. But, I don't know, overall. The scale was well done. A lot of the Fremen are more, against Paul, like I said. The Reverend Mother ceremony, pretty much the same. Yeah, some of the difference of the fundamentalists Fremen. I think that added to some cool jokes. And also allowed Paul to win the Fremen over in a different, maybe more interesting way.
Yeah, and without the big time jump that's in the book, I think having all these smaller obstacles for Paul to overcome allows there to be still that kind of forward momentum for Paul's story, where it's not just, like, he's actually trying to get to some point, instead of it just being a jump and then he's there.
Oh, something too is when Paul kind of, like, becomes the Fremen leader. Every single time I watched that, I got chills. That was such an epic moment where Timothée Chalamet is just going out there yelling at everyone. In all three viewings, that moment chills every single time. That was a badass moment.
Very powerful.
It was pretty good. The effects were still fantastic. Cinematography was fantastic. Everything was well lit. A couple of the wide shots again, I was like, I don't know. That looks a little wonky. I don't know why. Maybe it's the buildings. The score. I don't think the score is super memorable, but it is really good. It enhances the moments well. But I think you could also argue it's a good score because you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's just, it sweetens the moment. It's not like an iconic score, maybe like a Star Wars or a Harry Potter where you're like humming it to yourself.
Yeah, this isn't a humming score.
Or even Interstellar where you think about it like over and over again, which is Hans Zimmer. Or even Inception. But it's just an iconic score. I think that works well for Dune and the world. I think it builds that out really, really well.
It's atmospheric as well.
Yeah, very atmospheric. Yeah, some of the things like different... I really liked Florence Pugh as Irulan.
Yes.
I didn't think I was going to be a huge Florence Pugh fan in this. I didn't really like her in some of the things I've seen, but I've only really seen her in Oppenheimer and Marvel. And I don't know, I feel like she didn't get much to work with in Oppenheimer, though she is good in that. And then her in Marvel is kind of just more of a joke character, I think. Still good, but I think she actually did the role of Irulan well, who's a trained Bene Gesserit, so the kind of like reserved more like subtle moments where you get with her, I think it was actually really, really well done.
Yes.
I did really enjoy it. I think the only thing is that I was just kind of sad that I didn't get some of the moments from the book, but I'll be very curious to see if they do Dune Messiah, what they go about doing that way.
Yes, it's going to be a definite deviation from the book, I think. But in a good way. I think this is setting up a different Dune Messiah, but one that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see the big time jump of Dune Messiah, or if we do see it, it'll be in a very different way, or it'll be maybe partway through the film, or we'll get an opening of the, like, I don't know. I think it'll be very different. I also haven't read Dune Messiah. I've only read, like, the first couple chapters.
We're trying.
But I'm going to do my best to finish it, and hopefully they come up with a book. I'm just going to double check I haven't forgotten anything.
Well, you got a few years to read it, so we should be able to do it.
Yeah, one last thing that I just thought of that I realized I didn't talk about is Gady Prime. Oh my god, the black and white design where the daylight of Gady Prime is all black and white. Like, you don't see color in that. I thought that was a really cool detail. It makes Gady Prime stand out way more against anything else. But then when you even get the fireworks going off, that saps color out of shots where you can see them lit from one side, but then it goes to black and white on the other half. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, and the texture of them where they're like ink.
Yeah, the
beautiful stuff.
Inky fireworks. I thought that was a really, really cool design. I would have never thought of that. It's like a tiny detail that some VFX person absolutely nailed.
Genius stuff.
And then overall, the costume design was fantastic. They gave the Baron the weird floaty orb thing. I thought that was kind of unnecessary.
Well, yeah.
But I guess in the book he doesn't get poisoned, where in the movie they went with him getting poisoned and he just kind of floated away. Mm-hmm. The way the suspensors work I thought was really cool. Yeah, when you get to see Gurney Halleck show up again, I thought that was like ripped straight from the books. But I don't know if I love Christopher Walken as the Emperor. I feel like he was too old, just not charismatic enough. Because the Emperor is talked about as being like a presence, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like Christopher Walken was maybe too subdued in this. Because there are some moments where he's like yelling at Paul that I don't think it quite worked because he didn't have the force behind him.
Yeah, and Christopher Walken can do that kind of performance. He can go over the top if you need him to. But I just don't think he did in this film. It could have used a bit more Christopher Walken-ness.
Yeah, it was pretty subtle. I don't know. Maybe it's just too, like, a nitpick, but I think, because in the book he's described as being like 35 looking, even though he's 70, which I think would have come off as goofy. Yeah. But I think if they got someone like a Kurt Russell type, where he's got the charisma, because I'm thinking of him as like Egon the Planet, where he's like super like charismatic to Chris Pratt, but he's still like menacing once he needs to be. Yeah. I think that would have worked really well. But I don't think I'm missing anything outside of that. Steve, what do you think of the movie overall? Out of 10?
Out of 10? Maybe an 8.
Yeah,
it's really good.
8 or 9. I think 9 or 10, even movie-wise, but in the context of it that it's adapting Dune, probably an 8. Yeah. Like it's still a solid film. Definitely above average. I think it's Denis Villeneuve nailing it again because he doesn't miss. He's got so many nominations for all sorts of awards. It's definitely something, having seen multiple times, I've enjoyed it the more I've watched it. So I think that's something. It's the first time I saw it, I think my immediate reaction was kind of, not disappointment, but I was sad I didn't get stuff from the book. Yeah. But once I watched it again, and then again, it was good, and I enjoyed it.